Ladies and gents, welcome back. While the wildfires are raging across Canada, the smoke from these fires are affecting the lives of millions of people across the continent. It's not just happening here in Canada, actually. There's lots of footage now from New York showing just how bad the air quality is over there. And I mean, you can hardly see anything in the skyline anymore at this stage. Now, there is a health safety warning going out there, an air quality health advisory. It is still in effect today in New York City. Tips to stay safe during the air quality of health advisory. These are things like for people like myself in the West Coast of Canada. This is a normal thing that we experience probably every year, most years. But this is definitely a new thing, especially for the Big Apple and people over there to experience this and have to limit their outdoor activity. Make sure you know people are not going outside. You have your HEPA filters going on within your house. Keep your outdoor vents if you have your air conditioning on. These are the health advisories that are being put out there. Some people not used to this, but because the wildfires are so bad and blowing directly in the line of New York City, of course, and other places in the US and in Canada that aren't used to this, people are becoming much more aware of this. Now, a lot of suspicion around the cause of these fires and the fact that they happen to all be north of the Canadian border at this time. But, well, a lot of people in America are having some sentiment towards Canada at the moment. New York Post is no stranger to this. They're putting it right out there on their website or on their headlines. I don't even know if this paper's in print anymore, but blame Canada, the headline says right on the front page. Canuck wildfires plunge New York into eerie, smoky hell. Oh, apocalypse now is the puns, right? But this is the reality of New York at the time. Rowan on Twitter saying, blame Canada as screaming climate alarmists squawk. Perhaps it's time to crack down on arsonists who don't appear active in the United States at the moment. Well, of course, because we could see this. And there are many, many cases of arson. We'll get to that. But the sentiment right now is the blame Canada across the interwebs. You go on Twitter, it's trending, blame Canada. Of course, this is the hit song from from South Park, of course, from the movie that they produced ages ago. But yeah, a lot of people putting this one out there today. Blame Canada for the smoke that's coming in. Of course, even Marc Shaiman put out a new rendition of the song. I'm not going to play it on here because obviously copyright issues, but I will leave a link in the description down below. There's a special edition for the smoke in eastern United States today because of course, what's happening here in Canada. Now, the Prime Minister, of course, wants to use this to his political advantage as the Conservatives were trying to hold back the budget 2023 from passing through, which obviously it passed anyway. But they tried to hold it back because they were trying to stop an additional $600 billion of spending to go on this economy that we are already destroying. But here's the Prime Minister using this as a political tool as well.
I've answered this question a few times, but the Leader of the Opposition continues to ask it because he refuses to go outside and see what is actually happening in Canada. Forest fires are raging. It's the worst year on record for forest fires already, but the fact is they are going to get worse in the coming years because climate change is real, and yet the Conservative Party continues to stand against the climate action that we've been taking, stand against the investments that we're making to support families, to support first responders. They continue to stand against help for Canadians who are losing their homes, losing their families, losing their livelihood. The Honourable...
Okay, so it just continues, but whether you... wherever you stand on climate change, most people acknowledge that the climate is changing, things are happening. But to blame it on forest fires that are either caused by, lightning, as we saw recently from Tim Pool, he put out yesterday, saying that it looks like lightning was the culprit for a lot of the forest fires that seemed to light all around the same time yesterday or the day before. But here is a lot of instances of actual arson. There's stories across Canada of arson in these forest fires where people intentionally set them for whatever reason. Some people claiming that this is environmentalists saying, you don't believe in climate change? I'll show you what climate change looks like, which would be a self-fulfilling prophecy if that were the case. But some of these are interesting stories where they almost seem like mentally ill people. Not sure, but cops are suspected arson caused wildfire at least one part of Quebec. So arson is definitely a factor in this, and this is across the board. Nova Scotia, we even have arson investigations going on in Alberta, but this is the case. Now, nonetheless, the landscape has changed over the past 100 years or so, and this is a really interesting factor. This is what Lookout Mountain looked like in the 1930s. You see the massive difference in landscape, and well, what is the reason for some of these differences in the landscape over the past 100 years? Well, it would be the difference in how we are managing our forests, especially around the advent of, well, not the advent of forest fires, but around our perception of how forest fires should play a role in forestry. And unfortunately, we've taken an abstinence-only approach over the past 100 years, which is actually added to the problem, according to Paul Hesberg here in his TED Talk, where he's bringing the idea and letting people know that a lot of this problem is actually stemming from our own management. So yes, it could be anthropogenic, but maybe not in the climate change sense, but maybe in the fact that we've been suppressing fire for such a long time that fire is going to happen. This is a natural occurrence. And I'll play this clip from his TED Talk so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about here.
And then something happened which caused a sudden pivot in our society. In 1910, we had a huge wildfire. It was the size of the state of Connecticut. We called it the Big Burn. It stretched from eastern Washington to western Montana, and it burned in a few days 3 million acres, devoured several towns, and it killed 87 people. Most of them were firefighters. Because of the Big Burn, wildfire became public enemy number one, and this would shape the way that we would think about wildfire in our society for the next 100 years. Thereafter, the Forest Service, just 5 years young at the time, was tasked with the responsibility of putting out all wildfires on 193 million acres of public lands, and they took this responsibility very seriously. They developed this unequaled ability to put fires out, and they put out 95 to 98% of all fires every single year in the US. And from this point on, it was now fire suppression and not wildfires that would become a prime shaper of our forests. After World War II, timber harvesting got going in the West, and the logging removed the large and the old trees, and these were survivors of centuries of wildfires. And the forest filled in, thin-barked, fire-sensitive small trees filled in the gaps. And our forest became dense, with trees so layered and close together that they were touching each other. So fires were unintentionally blocked by roads and railroads. The cattle and sheep ate the grass. Then along comes fire suppression and logging, removing the big trees. And you know what happened? All these factors worked together to allow the forest to fill in, creating what I call the current epidemic of trees.
Wow, this is insane if you think about it. The current epidemic of trees, as he puts it, creates a tremendous environment for these forest fires to rage, but not only rage, but rage for large distances and intense. And well, there's a lot of issues that could come about from this. If you look it up, you can Google the idea of scorched earth. This is when forest fires rage too hard, too hot, and for too long. They actually damage the enzymes in the soil. To the nutrients and the enzymes get burned off completely. There's at least a 30-year process naturally before anything will ever grow back again. So the natural cycle has been interrupted. Yes, that's true, but not because of climate change. It would appear it would be because of our management of the forests and not actually adhering to, well, how the nature cycle in this whole thing. Now, another contributing factor to the reason why these are raging on longer than they ought to is, well, the fact that fire suppression in its capacity that we have not been actually utilizing the resources that we have available to us. Here is a fireman who has been outspoken now, put this out there to say, listen, we have the resources, we're just not using them.
Hi folks, I'm a retired forest technologist from the Department of Natural Resources, and I have 29 years experience fighting forest fires here in Nova Scotia. As things progressed last week and buildings were burning and people were being evacuated, I realized that Nova Scotia had a resource of retired technical staff that were experts at fighting fire. And so I put together a team. I called some of these guys up and I put together a crack team. And then I immediately notified Natural Resources at Fire Control in Shuby. I contacted a local district supervisor. And they both notified me that the province wouldn't be interested in hiring on any retired staff to do work. So at the same time we were being told that, the Premier was begging for help on every newscast that he could get on. So I started that last Tuesday. And then I fought with the province on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and again on Friday, trying to get our guys put in key positions where they were needed throughout the province. And I got the same answer continually: thank you, but no thank you. Finally, I got frustrated and went on talk radio on Thursday, and then I got a phone call from Shuby Radio that said, or not Shuby Radio, Shuby Fire Control, that they'd put my name on the list and the name of a few others. It was a polite way to say, look, we know you're making noise, thank you, but no thank you, we're still not going to hire you guys to come fight fires. So what taxpayers need to understand is while buildings were burning and the province was short-staffed, and our government was standing in front of TV cameras saying we're doing everything they can, they lied to your face. They didn't. I could have pulled together a lot more teams of guys, retired guys willing to come out and do this. We were not offering to do front line, hose line fire, but there's for every guy on the line, sometimes there's 3 guys behind the line providing what they need in the way of services. And we were highly trained in both evacuation, all levels of incident command. Personally, I've been incident commander on dozens of different fires and fought fires up to 50,000 acres. And together on the first team I put together, we had close to 200 years of experience of fighting fires here in the Acadia region of Nova Scotia. We have our own particular forests down here that, for example, all the crews that are being shipped in have zero experience fighting fires in an Acadian forest region. Most of their experience is in boreal forests. The guys from South Africa have no experience up here. The guys from the U.S., same thing. And our own government passed over an opportunity to hire a team of professionals to come in and help them do the work they're now paying for foreigners to come in and do who aren't experienced in our forest type.
Well, there you have it, and I'll leave a link in the description so you can watch the whole video in its entirety. But for the sake of time on this video, I'm going to cut this here. But I'd love to hear your opinions on this. No matter who you want to blame for the reasons that the forest fires got started, where do you stand on this idea of, well, is it the climate, or is it actually maybe the fact that we've changed our landscape And that's an anthropogenic thing by stopping forest fires over the course of 100 years. Now they seem to be raging more. And the evidence is mounting for this hypothesis, as well as the fact that our government, despite having these resources at home, are reaching out to people who are underqualified. Not that they're not qualified at fighting forest fires, but they're underqualified for our particular regions, and they're ignoring people who are actually capable of doing this on a volunteer basis. Anyway, leave a comment in the comment section down below, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.